All right. We should be live. We should be here. Looks like it's coming on.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome back to the Stream of Truth. I am Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook.
And I am Sean Albert Kelly. I figured I would share my middle name that I've always found horribly embarrassing. Albert.
And what's the meaning of Albert? You have shared it with me.
Albert means nobility.
I love that.
Yeah, and then Sean means graced by God.
Nice.
And I don't know if Kelly has a meaning. I think it refers to the old. There's an old I think it's Irish family called the O'Callagh or O'Callagh, and it's spelled with like a Callaigh or something like that.
Yes.
And then we like westernized it or something. I'm not sure, but yeah. So there's like a crest and stuff that seems to be related to that naming. I have no idea if it's relative to my family or not, but anyway.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I said this to you before, but I find it interesting that your last name is Kelly and my first and only husband's name is Kelly as a first name.
Yeah.
Those kind of
Ex-husband.
Ex-husband, yes.
Yeah. It would be weird to say we're in a relationship while you have a husband.
Yeah. It's sort of like this Kelly bookends that I'm in right now.
Yeah, you just switched Kellys.
I just switched Kellys.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're both beautiful people.
Exactly.
So
yeah, do you want to start?
Yeah. So today, episode 10, a lovely number, 10, we are going to do a deep dive into the spiritual ego. And we're going to talk about 9 steps of purifying our spiritual ego, which can lead us to experience more inner peace, and then outer peace with others as well. And I want to just pause here to say that I don't know if you'd agree, but this seems to be one of the main goals of what you and I are doing on our path, and what we hope to share is really inner peace.
Yeah. I was going to say that like the title or the topic we're talking about is not so sexy. It's kind of it's not.
I said to you, like, why would people care about the spiritual ego?
Yeah,
or
and
cleaning it up. Who cares? Why does that matter to me?
It's one of those things that's not as exciting to learn about or to talk about. Although I find it exciting because I know the value of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But even myself, when I noticed it occurring, it wasn't something I even thought to really address. Because it's very sneaky. I was talking about it earlier with you. It's almost like the level 2, like ego level 2.
Yes.
Because it sort of frames itself around a lot of positive things, and it can be very tricky to navigate that. So.
Yes. And so the reason we're getting into it is because we really believe it can help our inner experience, which in the end is the most important goal. How we're experiencing ourselves.
Yeah. So if your goal is like peace and tranquility in yourself, then this should help. This is
a good episode for you.
Yeah. And also it may help you be aware of some of the behaviors that you've been involved in that you didn't even really notice were likely causing you suffering.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And maybe even I'm thinking for myself that in the past or presently, as I connect with spiritual leaders, sometimes why it might not feel aligned, possibly if they're really inhabiting the spiritual ego.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start off with 9 steps to purify the spiritual ego. And we also wanted to share that these steps we're going to be discussing are really the main steps to any type of shadow work, self-inquiry in general. So we can apply these steps to all aspects of our shadow.
Yeah, and we're just sort of framing it around spiritual ego because spiritual egos it can be a little bit elusive for us to notice. And so it sort of, in my opinion, it sort of requires a special little lens. But yeah, all the practices apply to all of the various things that we experience. And I'm sure we'll talk about these practices, and probably already have already in some of the episodes. So
over and over again,
these themes will keep cropping up because it's sort of the same practice. But sometimes, like, at least I've noticed that there's almost categories that we understand we're doing shadow work in certain categories, but other categories we just sort of don't, for some reason. We don't notice it or something, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's good to sometimes it's good to like shift the perspective or look at very particular categories of, you know, things happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it'd be interesting to also start with, why did we want to talk about this at all? Why was this sort of a passionate topic for us?
I think where did you suggest it, or did I suggest? I don't remember who suggested it.
I suggested it this morning, but we've talked about doing it before.
I think I wanted to do this one because I'm exhausted and it seemed easy. I think that it seemed something that I can do. I didn't sleep well, and which, you know, of course, I had like heartburn and just didn't sleep well at all. So I'm like tired. I feel inarticulate. It seems to have like turned on once I came on. It's like I don't know.
Your normal.
Yeah. It feels like the tiredness is just stepped aside so I can do this.
Yes.
Which is great, and sort of what I presumed would happen. But I think that's really why, is that I know that the value of it, but then I also knew that I could speak to it fairly easily. There's not a lot of concepts I have to like dig for, or you know. Yeah.
Totally. And I think for me, the reason I'm really interested in it is that I think my spiritual ego can hold me back. And we're going to talk about the different forms the spiritual ego might take, but one of them can be this comparison with others in regards to spirituality. And I think for me, maybe partly because I really have no background spiritually. I have a PhD in psychotherapy, and my spiritual experience has felt more recent. And I think my identity was more as a therapist, I guess. And so as I continue on this path, sometimes my spiritual ego will be like, well, you're less than these other spiritual people.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to just have more expansion around that.
So maybe we should just quickly start with what we would call spiritual ego, what it is to us.
Yes.
I think the definition of it would change based on who you ask. It all really depends on what ego means to the person, and what spirituality also means, and all that stuff. So what I would say is it's identification with generally spiritual beliefs or concepts that are causing a difficulty in acceptance in some form of experience. That's sort of the best way. I mean, it's sort of like we have positive beliefs that are getting formed from spirituality that we're learning these new concepts, or we're becoming aware of them internally, whether we've consumed it or whatever. We start to become aware of these things, and then they're positive in nature, but then we still have some of the negative beliefs kicking around. So we start to like taint or cause a sort of impurity in our positive beliefs. And that tends to be how I look at the spiritual ego. It's like it's generally coming from a sort of positive place, or seeming that way. But it's generally like a limited, it's like halfway, almost like halfway through or something. I don't know how to explain it, like halfway positive. And it can be it can be an interesting one because it's harder to notice due to that almost mixed polarity of it.
Yes. I like how you described it. I'm going to describe it too, partly for my own clarity.
Yeah,
so
please.
I'm going to just back up to how I think of ego. And we talked about this before the show. So I'm thinking of ego as this collection of beliefs, titles, roles, thoughts that I hold and that I identify with. Like,
Yeah.
I am a mom, I am a therapist, I believe this and that. And so it's all of that, and then how I identify with that.
Yeah.
And then so if I think, okay, what's my spiritual ego? It would be, okay, now I have all these spiritual beliefs that I'm identifying with, and I might think, oh, I am a spiritual person. That's a role I'm playing or a title I'm playing.
Yeah.
So, and then we're going to just sort of discuss how, maybe that can go awry in some ways, just as the ego can sort of go awry in some ways.
Yeah. And so I guess the one of the easiest ways to see it is just to be like, okay, spirituality sort of becomes a metric. Like, if you're acting in alignment with what I consider to be spiritual, then you are more spiritual than someone who's not acting in alignment with that. So, like, if we think that peace is spiritual, right? When we see people acting out of something that is not peace, like something like conflict, then we're sort of like, we can be judgmental. We can be like, oh, this person's dumb, or we could think they're unevolved, or whatever.
I am spiritual, I am peaceful, and what I'm seeing, well, they're not. They're not peaceful. They're not.
And that's not good. And that there's a problem with that. And we may seek to adjust it, or we may not do anything but quietly judge. It's all different, but that's generally, I think, the idea of what we're talking about here. But like you said, ego, my understanding of ego is that it's the activity of identification with everything, positive or negative.
Yes.
Any identification invites opportunity for the opposite to show itself.
Yeah.
So if we say we're peaceful and we don't see peace in something, then we say I'm peaceful, and that's not, I don't accept it. Really what we're trying to foster is a open, accepting heart, right?
Yes.
And when somebody is not peaceful, we send them love. And it's just, love is the answer, right?
Yeah.
And we know that, like, especially if we're dealing with spiritual ego, we've already been on the path for a while. We're aware, but we don't realize that we're acting out of harmony with true expression of open-hearted love when we're like judging somebody who's not acting from peace, or for example.
Yes. And I think we're also saying that our spiritual ego can judge ourselves, where we can judge others and judge ourselves.
Yeah.
And the goal, as you beautifully said, open acceptance and love towards self, others, all situations, everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Love. Yes. Okay, great.
So I guess we'll start with number one. And I think number one is the primary thing that to remember as often as possible. It's probably the most powerful practice that you can really implement. And at the end, we'll give a little practice that Aaron Apke came up with. But it's the purpose of being here, like the primary purpose. There's really only one rule, or, if you want to even call it a rule, a prime directive maybe. And that is, the creator will know itself. That is what will happen. And what that means, though, is that all we do as beings, all beings across the universe, are observing the creator. That's all they're doing. And the creator will know itself. So all you're ever doing is observing something in an effort to know yourself. And all we experience is ourselves. we don't experience the other's experience in third density, right? We we may know someone really well, but really our framework of that person is a identity that we've crafted for them based on their behaviors and things they've expressed to us. It's not really their experience. We can sort of guess at how they might take things, but we don't experience it for them. So we're not aware, right? And so that's sort of the easiest way to look at it, is that all we're ever doing is looking in a mirror, experiencing ourselves, our own energy, and knowing more about ourselves. And if we can remember that everything we look at is the creator, the other person being, bananas and throwing bricks through windows or something, that's the creator doing that. And they are just as part of the creator as you are. That's where we can let go of the judgment. Essentially, by viewing the creator and then judging it, you're judging yourself. You are a creator, so you're judging your own creation, and that feels bad. And so then we think we have to say something or do something because it feels bad and we're uncomfortable. But we're uncomfortable because we're judging something that we don't truly want to be judging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That super powerful statement that you started with, the creator will know itself. Is that your wording, or is that from the law of one? Powerful.
Ka has said it, as well as Ra. Ra said it in the law of one. So third density is the choice, where we choose basically separation or unity, or service to self or service to others.
Yeah.
Both of those are avenues to know ourselves. And basically you could think of all the densities of consciousness as different gradations of knowing ourselves. Different.
Okay.
Yeah. So we know ourselves in first density. We know ourselves as pure being. There's no movement, really. Mm-hmm. In second density, we start to learn of movement. We move towards the light. This is where consciousness grows. Little life forms grow. They move towards their food and their light. Plants shape themselves so that they can be seen by the sun and absorb those rays, etc. And then move into third density, where we become self-conscious. We realize we have a self-identity. This is when the yellow ray opens, and we know ourselves to be an identified thing, a separate, unique experience. Then we go into fourth density, open up the heart, and we unify with the collective, either through unification through separation via hierarchy, or unification via unity and allness, wholeness. And then we continue that up into fifth density. Fifth density, we apply wisdom to what we learned about love. We start to learn about martyrdom and different things, but we're always learning of ourselves. It's the creator will know itself, and that's always what perpetuates evolution.
So to me, this feels like such exciting information. I feel a sense of relief.
Yeah.
If the main purpose, directive of my incarnations is to know myself, to me, that feels like a lot of pressure has been released. In other words,
it's a lot simpler.
Yeah, because in our Western programming, we might think the purpose is to achieve, to do, to become, to a lot of action,
and
very
even
action oriented.
Even that idea of serving.
Yes.
The purpose is to serve. That's true, but you serve through knowing yourself.
Yes.
That is your primary service.
And it has felt to me, and maybe you or others listening, that for decades in my life, I was not knowing myself. There was not an exploration of myself. And it felt like that's what was being asked of me, to just withdraw from myself, abandon myself, and become almost a robot in the way that society wanted me to become. So to me, this is fantastic information.
Yeah, and that's why we said at the beginning that like it really does. It's like, what do we call it? Foundational things. Like they're global. They apply to everything we experience, but we're framing them around spiritual ego. Yeah.
I feel this first step that you eloquently explained is the foundation of our existence in our incarnations.
As far as I am aware, that's the primary sort of thing that's happening. Yeah.
Okay, great. I can get on board with that. I like that. Okay, so number 2, we have the second step to purifying your spiritual ego and nurturing more inner peace is to be present and mindful. And isn't this a foundational practice for all of us in every aspect of our lives?
Yep.
So we wouldn't even really be able to pick up this spiritual ego arising in us if we're distracted and not really being present. And Sean, you and I were talking about sort of practices of presence and mindfulness. If that's a muscle that we're working on developing, and we talked about easy practice is tuning into the 5 senses in the present time. Like, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? Maybe what am I touching? If I'm eating something, what am I tasting? So those sorts of things. So just the practice of presence and mindfulness so that we can even be aware of what's going on within us as we go through our interactions with people and with ourselves.
Yeah, it's sort of to train, like you said, muscle, or build a habit in the self that we tend to have all these pressing egoic thoughts that call our attention to them.
Yes.
And we feel like we have to go through these thoughts. Yes. Otherwise, like there's almost some urgency to them. Like we have to do it, right? Like we have to think about.
Like there's a vigilance that it feels the ego wants to perform all the time.
Right. And so we need to switch that vigilance.
Yeah.
Be vigilant about being present, almost.
Yes.
Like in a gentle way, but basically, so it's switched. So you will sort of be more mindful most of the time, occasionally falling into more egoic thought.
Yes.
And then because of that, you'll begin to notice when that is occurring. So that's the main reason for presence in this application, is to notice.
Something that has helped me be more present is a faith that I will know if something else requires my attention. I will be made known. It will be made known to me.
Yeah.
So I have faith that I can be present and not be super vigilant of everything else. And that if I need to know something that's important, it will come into my consciousness.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It's about because whenever we're, generally speaking, when we're in egoic thought, we're usually tying to the past or present in some way. We're not present in the moment, right?
Yeah, we're usually thinking about the past or the future, right?
We're planning, or we're
missing the present,
or we're ruminating, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, we want to be in a place where we're trusting.
Yes.
Like, because
the reason we can be present.
The reason we're trying to project our consciousness into the futures is because we believe that planning for these things that have not yet materialized will bring about what we're trying to accomplish, right?
It's fear-based. I better think about the future and what I need to do and how I need to prepare for it. I can't be present now.
Because if I don't think about it, it's not going to happen.
Something bad might happen.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm going to miss something, and I'm going to make all these mistakes, and who knows. So yeah, trust and faith is a big part of it.
Trust and faith that you'll be the universe has your back. Whatever you need to know is going to come into your awareness.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The big one. Okay.
So number 3, Yeah.
Yes.
Become aware of the existence of the spiritual ego. So that's part of what we talked about in number 2. The best way to become aware is to be present and just observe it when it's happening. But you have to notice how it's showing up, because before you notice it, it's not a thing. You're not conscious of it. And so really, we're just really trying to pay attention to our own actions, our own behaviors, our thoughts. As we awaken and move further down this path, we start to become aware of the need to be very diligent around our own thinking and our own beliefs and how we interact with them. So this is building that sort of habit. But basically, you want to pay attention to when it's similar to any shadow work, but in the spiritual community, like if you're dealing with spiritual ego, you want to try to approach it understanding that, like, you may have aspects of it kind of right, like the belief may be fairly true, but that there's a higher perspective, and that the reason that you feel this discord is because you haven't fully formulated the positive belief yet. And what's happened is the negative egoic beliefs have sort of crept in and tainted it a bit. So
we give a real example of this just to really flesh it out.
Yeah, like, sure. Do you want to give one? And then I'll give one.
Sure. So I'll just do the one that I'm working myself.
Sure.
And that is that I'm less than other spiritual people. My spiritual evolution is less than. I'm less value. So if I feel that, it doesn't feel good, obviously, because I'm judging myself and sort of denigrating myself. And I think it's been like a habitual thought. So probably often I don't even really notice that I'm thinking that or feeling that.
Yeah.
Without some mindfulness around it.
Yeah. And so that's sort of one side of the spectrum where it shows up as like a negative orientation around a spiritual concept. Right? Yeah. Like whether it's like connection to spirit or however we perceive it. And then some of the ones that I dealt with, because I was pretty quick, like once I had a very crazy experience. And so once that happened, I was forced to either say, okay, it's real, I'm experiencing it, or I'm nuts, right?
Yeah.
And I went the way of it's real and I'm experiencing it. So once that sort of happened, I was pretty good with that. I did question my own experiences a lot. There's lots of skepticism in my, like, I'm oriented to be skeptical, and like, I don't believe things just because someone says it. I have to really feel it and stuff and have a certain grasp of it before I even, entertain it. And so I can seem really stubborn and pig-headed that way. But yeah, so I guess I would say my example on personally, it shows up for me in a few different ways. I have a general impatience that comes in to varying degrees around dealing with people that are very upset about things that I cannot, basically I've been past those lessons.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I can be impatient with people that are still in the middle of those lessons. Part of me recognizes very clearly that they're perfect where they are and that it's, but there is a part of me that I've been working on for a while. And it's a quiet part. It's not, but it's there. It is there. That can feel a little irritated or a little like, not so compassionate, a little bit like a little judgy, right? Why can't they just move past this, right? That type of feeling. So that can show up for me because it's sort of it's not accepting the multiple levels of evolution and that everyone's perfect where they are, not fully anyway. It's not fully accepting that. And then another way that I experienced it, which is more, I guess, polarizing, is like I started to feel very special, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
like
I am a star seed.
yeah, I start to identify with all these various concepts and things,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I am a warrior of the light, and
Yeah.
and you know that it's fine. It's fine to a degree. So there's balance that has to be held there. Like basically what happens is usually during our awakening, our ego is like losing all this power because we're starting to see the illusion. So we start to work on that stuff. But then we bring in these new concepts and the ego, they're fresh fruit. Fresh
like,
fruit.
Oh, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
I'll take that one.
Oh yeah, I can really tie to that one. I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And I didn't have too much issues with the starseed stuff, but some people get really into that, and it's really interesting stuff to learn about and to and it may resonate deeply. It doesn't mean that these things are not true. It's that these things are superficial truths.
Yeah.
They're transitory. They're not core to the experience now. You know, it's just like living in last year when you made that mistake. You know, if you did in fact come from this other star, you know, you're here now. So to live in the identity from the other star, really it's not gonna help you with your lessons here now, generally.
Yeah. I want to just share something really quick about this, is that I had in some ways the opposite issue where I didn't feel special enough to identify, say, as a starseed or a Blu-ray being, which I think is more resonant specifically. But I was like, well, I'm not special enough to be like those special starseed people. So that was part of my experience too. I guess in a way was I couldn't identify with it at all because I didn't think I was special.
Yeah. So in that case, it's almost like the spiritual fruits that were being shown to the ego. The ego is like, ooh, that doesn't really resonate with my belief about myself.
Yes, I guess that was my ego rejecting some of what seemed to be.
It couldn't clamp on because it conflicted.
It didn't feel worthy. It didn't feel.
Yeah,
worthy.
It conflicted with other beliefs. The other belief being I'm not special enough, right? So it conflicted. Yeah. The ego was like, we'll leave that alone for now, right? Exactly. So you may have avoided a lot of those things because you're the way that you're expanding. And there's no shame in having these inner experience. Like part of the whole thing is accepting, yes, I do feel impatience, I do feel jealousy, or I do feel comparisons, whatever they are. Like being truthful and honest, but also gentle.
Yeah. So this is the shadow that's coming up for us. First step, just to see it. Oh, look, I do have these feelings, thoughts, experiences.
Yeah, and the spiritual ego, I would say, is generally like prerequisite. Like you have to go through it. You have to. It's like at each progression, there's almost a step, and there's a threshold.
Yeah.
There's a threshold that has to be crossed, and there's resistance to crossing that threshold. There's confusion and stuff.
Yes.
And that happens at each major upgrade. Initiation.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, number 4, we have as throughout your day, notice any moments when you lose your peace. So we've given some examples of this already, but for me, if what's coming up for me is I'm less than in some way, just to notice look what I'm feeling, look at what is arising, and how do I feel about that, which is number 5.
So these two are pretty
Yeah, we could probably have condensed these.
Combine them together maybe. But
So, and then just to flesh out the example I'm giving, so feeling less than, if I feel into that, I can feel that that is a bit of a thread, a theme throughout my life of feeling less than compared to other girls when I was little, or my sister. Probably originated with my sister when I think about it. Oh, that's a good understanding right there. Um, so anyway, just feeling into the feelings, and then as I just did, looking, more than likely the higher self will take you back to different scenes where those feelings originated and have been perhaps carried through, and that this is a story I hold, that I've carried through all the decades of my life, that I'm less than.
Yeah.
I'm less than others.
And you're just sort of applying it to a new concept.
To this new concept of spiritual ego. And what a surprise. There's a new concept. Oh, here I am. Here's my ego applying the same old tired story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, you had said, feel any feelings that may arise, right? The purpose of that is to feel into the story and really notice how it's, it's just a whole bunch of bad, right? It's not
a whole bunch of bad. And we know it's bad because it feels bad.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the only metric we need. And we've said before that our conceptualization of that is that we have a different feeling than our higher self does about this, that we're in disharmony with our higher self.
Yeah, we're rejecting our divinity, basically. Yeah, whenever that happens, whenever we feel bad, we're rejecting our divinity generally.
Yes.
More or less.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So
I guess we'll just skip 5 because that covers 5. So we did 4 and 5 as one, and then I think 6. So you're on 6, self-inquiry.
Okay, so 6, self-inquiry. Ask yourself why. Why did I lose my peace? Answer this question without justification or rationalizing. So I think I just did that too, that I realized that I felt less than because this is a very old story that I've been carrying around with me in bags. Do you want to use your example of and maybe do self-inquiry around that?
Which example was I going to use?
You could use, like, sometimes if you feel impatient around others.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll do that one.
Yeah.
I forgot we had mentioned this when we were talking earlier. So what I would say is, like, let's just make an example. Somebody posts something on Facebook, and maybe it's a spiritual teacher or something, and they say something that's just bananas. It's just not at all how any of this works. But maybe they have a large following. This is where it tends to get me the most, is because I know people watch and listen to these people, and I can feel like I have to correct them. And when I ask myself, why do I have to correct them? Right? Why do I feel like I have to correct them? And the reason is because I'm judging their expression as less than perfect. Right? And I'm rationalizing that with the amount of people that are listening and their position or status as teacher or guru, and sort of, I'm like, all these people are being misled, right? I need to fix this. It's and it's misplaced. And so why do I feel like I need to address this? I feel like I need to address it because it doesn't feel correct. It feels wrong, feels not perfect. But that's because I'm judging their expression. And so I'm judging their expression to be less evolved, whatever. What I'm failing to realize is that the people that are consuming that content are consuming exactly what they're calling for. The people the person that is delivering the content is delivering their truth, which should be celebrated, even if it's nonsense. It's it takes strength to just stand up and speak your truth, even if it's crazy and nonsense. I shouldn't use the word crazy, but if it's based in illusion and confusion, is what I mean when I say nonsense. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and that everybody that's expressing anything they believe is perfect. Anybody expressing anything is perfect, because everything that they express is used then by others to know themselves, and that person's using their experience of expression to also know themselves. It's all perfect. And so dissolving that story is like reminding myself that even though I can see that it's confused, it's not really my responsibility to jump in and try to change other people's views. It's really not. Have you ever tried to change someone's view truly without them asking you? It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So, oh, we got some comments here. I just wanted to thank Ruby and Chud for commenting. Ruby said she sometimes becomes judgmental of other people's opinions because you don't understand why we can't be one with all. She reminds herself that not everyone will ascend in this lifetime. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is, you can have compassion, like knowing that they're sort of still in some of the suffering that you've moved through, right? Remember how it was when you were also very confused, and how unconsciously you went about your day, and you could remember like that, and that's where they are. And I always say that what Jesus said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. They don't know what they're doing as well, and half the time we don't know what we're doing. So and that goes for all of us. So to judge everyone for them doing their best to navigate this place, at the end is quite silly. It's almost like an 8th grader making fun of a 1st grader for not knowing, the 8th grade arithmetic or something, right?
Yes. And I'm really struck by how judgment is so prevalent in what we're talking about, whether it's judgment towards others in the example you gave, whether it's judgment towards ourselves in the example I gave, that the ego can really just go crazy with judgment. It just seems a real theme that the ego can take on.
Yeah.
Judge.
One of its primary directives is to take concepts and beliefs and then compare them to choose one that's better or worse, right? To frame it in a way that the rational, logical mind can make decisions about. That's like its primary function.
And we talked about this beforehand, that it starts because of survival, that the ego does need to make judgments about the human survival in all situations.
Yes.
But it can really just take it to such an extreme.
And I would also, just to add into that, this is a little secondary, but the red or first chakra energy center, also could be called Malkuth, is the primarily the most distorted energy center, and is the one that requires the most effort, because a lot of the egoic defense mechanisms are based in the concept that we're being attacked.
Yeah.
And it's about our survival. The ego frames it that way. It's coming from survival distortions, ideas that, like, somebody says something I don't agree with, they're attacking me.
Yes.
Right? Yes. That's all survival, and then it gets extra layers through the orange and yellow rays, but extra layers added onto it. But if we can undistort the red, like work on the root chakra primarily, and undistort a lot of that, then these things will clear up.
Yeah. And just I suppose to have compassion for ourselves, for those fears that we carry about our own survival,
right?
To keep taking this meta perspective that everything is perfect the way it's unfolding, ourselves, others, and just open acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7.
7, yeah. So after you've like observed it all, what you really want to do is try to notice like your preferred orientation. And sort of spend some time to try to revert to that. So I guess that's the next practice. So you'll talk about that after, but think about like, so how I used my example of sort of judging people's expression. That's really what I'm doing when I'm getting impatient or feeling like a spiritual teacher's teaching the wrong messaging, or, you know, what I'm doing is judging their expression. So what I want to do is develop a more habitual non-judgment, right? So that's sort of the way you want to go, is like notice sort of the root of what you're doing. Generally speaking, it's judgment. That's really the root of it. Almost always is judgment or fear, lack. Fear is, you know, just another, like, the sort of the base form of judgment is a fear of either the unknown or change, generally. So yeah, sort of switching it. So when you notice, either if you're judging yourself knowingly, that's great. But if you're judging others, you're really just judging yourself as well. So it sort of all comes back to judgment, and switching that to a non-judgment, a peace, and a knowing that although what they said doesn't resonate with me, there really isn't a need for me to expel energy to then adjust this. Like, it's really not, you know, unless they come to us and ask for our service in this, like, do you have any advice? I'm going through this problem, blah blah blah. Then we're being asked for service. When we offer service without the ask, then we're basically pushing our beliefs onto people. We're projecting our beliefs.
It's service to self, right?
Yeah, we feel uncomfortable, so we call ourselves to act.
Yeah.
When we call ourselves to act, we're serving ourselves.
Yeah.
When we respond to a call, we're serving others. Is an easy way to frame that. And so so you want to focus on non-judgment and serving others, presuming that's the path you've chosen, which is generally speaking going to be the path that the vast majority of humans choose.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, number 8. So number 7 is really focusing in on how do I want to respond in the future? What is my new orientation? And then number 8 is let's put this new orientation into practice, into real life, with a lot of self-love and gentleness. So usually takes, scientists, psychologists say, 30 to 40 days to really establish a new habit. So we can just look at this as like any other. This is just a new habit that we're putting into play.
Yeah.
I personally, I call it sticky note therapy. I just constantly write sticky notes of things I want to integrate into my mind. So in the example I was giving, that I wasn't worthy or I was less than, I might write a sticky note that says, you know, I am perfect just the way I am, or my evolution is perfect just the way it is. I am worthy. I accept myself. I love myself, whatever feels really resonant. I go so far as to put like sticky notes in lots of different places.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, in my car.
Yeah.
Affirmations, same thing, but you're just saying them to yourself. Guided meditations, just anything that resonates for you of just inputting that new. It's really just a new belief in your mind, and then it takes about 30 to 40 days for those new neural pathways to develop.
Yeah.
And just go easy on yourself. you might slip up. You might go into that default.
You probably will slip up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How often? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have one final practice, number 9.
Oh, I would just like to say about the sticky notes and all that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment an interesting component of that people might not have thought about. You can sort of think of human beings and how we operate as sort of biological computers. And so our subconscious belief structures are sort of like programs or sequences.
Yeah, like the software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is reprogramming our subconscious mind. We're reprogramming our belief structures through constantly reminding ourselves of our perfection, divinity, whatever.
Yes.
But trying to do it in a balanced way where we're not elevating ourselves above others. We're recognizing the divinity and perfection of all. And that's sort of what magic is the reprogramming of the subconscious mind. So magic is both like the magic would be the energy of the universe. And then it's reprogramming our subconscious mind to interact with this energy properly or more in a more aligned way. Yeah. I just wanted to share that.
I love that. And what a great metaphor just to think about. I'm just changing my inner programming. I'm just going to upgrade the drive.
Yeah, basically, that's the way to look at it. You're just upgrading or expanding yourself and trying to lose some of the rigidity of the old programming is a lot of what we're doing. Like we're trying to incorporate belief structures that are expansive and open instead of constricting.
Yes. So it's our Sean 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, Tassel 2.0, 3.0.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You can think of it too at more of at every single day we are reiterating on this. However many days you've lived, your Tassel, however many days, right?
We have the opportunity to upgrade every day.
Yeah. We are a fresh, new sort of, there's a process of death and rebirth that happens every time we go to sleep, basically.
Yes. I love that. It's such a very optimistic way to look at it too.
You're a new person every day.
Yes. I love it. Do you want to?
Oh yeah. So number
9.
Yeah. So practice the I am presence. So people may have heard about this or may not have. They've probably seen people say I am. And what this is remembering I am creator. So all of the labels that we apply to ourselves, like I'm a father, what we can notice is if, so for example, if I was not a father, would I still be me? Of course I would, right? Like if that label got lost, or for example, I used to work in IT, so I would consider myself to be an IT professional, right? When I lost those jobs, did I cease to exist? No. And you could apply that to every single label that you would call, I am this, I am that, I live here, I live there, I went to school here, I'm this old. All of those, all of those are impermanent. And they're also just conceptualizations of beliefs that we have applied. And we're really not any of those things. We're all of the things, and not really any of them. We're what we truly are is the original thought, which is just I am. When Source separated from itself to observe itself, the first thing it said was I am. Here I am. Or when Jesus asked, or was it Jesus? Someone asks a bush in the Bible, "Who are you?" And the bush says, "I am that I am." I think is what they say. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's referring to, is the I am presence, the presence of creator. This is what I also call the sacred witness. But basically, remembering I am, that's all I am. I'm creator. And it takes a little bit to feel into that. And Aaron Abke, in the description, he's the one that sort of came up with this concept as far as I know, but he has these practices, and he has a little series that we've linked in the description. And it's like a practice, and he has to do with like setting reminders on your phone to do a little 1-minute practice. He has a bunch of little techniques there for that particular thing, which I think is really, really powerful and ties into the first thing, which is we are the creator observing ourselves. This is a practice that can help us do that. And one other thing just to add that I like to do is whenever I see someone, before I engage with them, I try to remember to remind myself that they're a creator. Like, they're not creator speaking to me from a place of dictatorship, which is what has happened to me. You can fall into a bit of an illusion there, where whatever they say is divinely said, therefore it must be, enacted or followed, because you see them as God or creator. So you can come into that little issue. What you want to do is still run everything through your discernment. Creator says a whole bunch of crazy things. So, so and I say crazy, but just confused. The creator is as confused as the being is who's expressing, right? So, you have to sort of keep in mind that creator is all of it, the confusion and negativity, and the positivity and love and expansion. That's all creator. And so, try to look at it that way and still understand that it's not that I know better than creator, but this fractal of creator is saying some weird stuff, and I don't really want to listen to it anymore, or whatever it is, right?
And it's really, I didn't notice it until just now that we began step number 1 and ended step number 9 with basically the same idea.
That was my whole plan. Yeah. That was my whole plan.
Really recognizing the creator in ourselves as beginning and end.
Yeah, and if we can see that more truthfully and more clearly, we won't run into this judgment issue as much.
Yes.
We're not going to have that type of problem.
Yeah. For some reason, the phrase like seeing things through the eyes of God always helps lift me out of judgment.
Yes.
Like just unconditional love and acceptance. And then I want to just say, and I've been doing the I am witnessing practice more just to build up more of that consciousness within me. And every time I do it, it's almost like I can just sort of feel myself like stepping back a little bit out of my egoic mind and just sort of watching the mind and myself. And every time it feels so peaceful. It's like such a great respite from the day.
Yeah.
Just nothing to do, nothing to plan, just observing my human flowing through life. It's really, really, really peaceful. Really peaceful.
I want to just add, doing that practice while looking at yourself in the mirror is also can be very profound.
Like really seeing yourself as you're human and with a bit of perspective.
Yeah, if you're able to really sit in that I am creator or I am presence and then still observe yourself, you can see your own perfection a little better. And so you can start to form more positive beliefs around your physical appearance. All these types of things that you sort of adjust, right? So
seeing yourself again through the eyes of love.
You're seeing a more pure sight, a more pure perspective of yourself. And so the various weirdnesses of your body are easier to celebrate.
Are charming. Yeah.
Right. They're charming. Right. Yeah. That's another way to put it. Yeah. They're charming. They're what make your character, what form your uniqueness. Yeah. Exactly.
And I guess we might just say that this first practice, this 9th practice are basically the same. And that's what we really feel is the point of the path and the way to really live in peace.
Yeah. In the law of one, it basically offers more or less what we just offered as observe the creator, see the creator. That is the primary practice that they offer, as, you know, if you're able to do that, it's sort of the, I don't know, fast track or Speedy Gonzalez way of evolving and disintegrating a lot of that noise is if you see everything as creator, then
it's all beautiful and perfect and divine.
Right. And if you're judging it, then you're not really seeing it as creator. So
every person, every situation, every part of your body.
Yeah. And it can be hard to accept, you know, like you see some stuff on the news that somebody did something horrible and you're like, that's not God. That's not creator. They wouldn't do that. Creator's benevolent. Right. It's important to understand that it's not the creator doing it. It's the distortions and confusion that the creator is experiencing through those people doing that. Right? It's not, you know, so God isn't going, I know what I'll do today. I'll blow up this thing, or right. That's not really what's happening. The humans in their free will are choosing to do these things. Not the humans, but you could say the mind, body, spirit complexes. The humans not really choosing anything, but the mind, body, spirit complex, or the totality of their being is guiding and directing and offering catalyst, and then the human is doing based on their programming, which is why all we ever are really trying to do is adjust our programming so that we can behave aligned with Beautiful. I think that's it. Thank you guys for your comments. Chud also said, not sure what this is, but seems like you guys are spreading positive vibes. Best wishes. Best wishes to you, Chud. I love the name Chud. It's such a strange.
Oh, I'm sorry. This person's name is Chud.
Chud.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was Chad, who.
Oh yeah. No, it's not Chad. Not Chad.
It's a different person.
I'm sure Chad will watch. He tends to watch, so I'm sure he'll watch. But
cool.
This is a new person. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you tuned in, Chud and Ruby. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys, and we'll be with you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and all that.
Yes. Beautiful.
Heartburn or no heartburn?
Yes. You did great, Sean Albert Kelly.
It's funny, like earlier this morning, I really was not sure if I could do it. And, it seemed to go well. So that's important, I think, for me to experience it that way.
Totally. You did great. And
you did great. Okay.
Wisdom, always appreciated. All right. Sending everyone so much love. See you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.